Never waste a good crisis. And when it comes to the economic crisis, don't waste it when it can have a very positive impact.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
The way we're going to win over the long term is not just militarily. We've got to win over hearts and minds. And what that means is we've got to invest in countries that have no educational infrastructure and have no means for young people to get ahead. We've got to give them a stake in creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
Stay tuned for politics and religion.
Well, this article from a few days ago, but it was important to bring it up since we've not mentioned it on this program. Mr. Haniyeh, the Prime Minister of Hamas, the Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority, announces we won't respect any deal. Now, think about this. Hamas, he's the Prime Minister. Mahmoud Abbas is the president. We have a split government here. Hamas reigns down in Gaza, the population center of the Palestinian area, and yet Abbas is in power in supposedly more moderate West Bank area, and we're trying to make peace with the Palestinian Authority, with the Fatah organization, with Abbas, and Haniyeh says we're not going to respect anything. We're still going to lob rockets. Now, what do you do about that? They're saying, and all of this came about because the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, along with Mr. Abbas, were scheduled to meet with Barack Obama at the White House in Washington. And so consequently, Haniyeh is saying, well, you can go talk all you want to, but when you're done, you still got a problem because we're not cooperating and we're in power down here. We drove the Fatah organization out and we're very much in power. Well, that's what he said then. Now, there's a later development that supposedly there's some kind of a deal been reached between Hamas and Fatah, and they're supposed to have elections sometime soon in 2010 to determine who will really be in power. But in the meantime, how does this relate to the prophecies of the Bible? Because the Bible teaches there will be some kind of an agreement signed 7 years before Armageddon. But then it teaches 3.5 years later after the signing and 3.5 years before Armageddon, there's going to be a terrible outbreak of violence in the West Bank. Now, most people believe that when the deal is signed, it will put most of the West Bank under Palestinian Authority, creating a Palestinian state there. It will basically return Israel to 1967 borders with some modifications, perhaps. But it will leave the Palestinians in control of territory within a matter of 2, 3, 4 miles of the city of Jerusalem. So it's going to leave Israel in a very jeopardized situation, and that's the reason Israel says one of the conditions will be a totally disarmed state. We will not allow you to make treaties with other states. We will not allow you to have certain kinds of arms because we simply must have an insurance for our security. Well, that's in fact what they're saying. But let's say that we make a deal, that Israel makes a deal with the Palestinians, with Mahmoud Abbas and the Fatah organization, and yet you've got Hamas, which is really the stronger faction of the two, saying we're not going to respect that. So let's say that 3.5 years after this agreement is made, or less, that Hamas ends up totally overthrowing Fatah. Or let's say that in these elections coming up next year, Hamas dominates and takes over a larger share of the government. Can't tell you how all that's going to turn out yet, but apparently something goes wrong 3.5 years before Armageddon, because Jesus talked about it. He said in Matthew 24:15, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, then let those of you that live in Judea, that's the West Bank area, let those of you that live out there run for your lives, because then there will be great tribulation such as never has been before, nor ever again shall be. Now, we know what it's like when an organization like Hamas runs amok. We know what that's like, and it can be very bloody. Their throats can get slit. Suicide bombings can take place. It can be very bloody. Well, Jesus said, if you live out there in the West Bank, in the area of Judea, he said this, Matthew 24, verse 15 through 21, then if you're out there and when this incident happens, you are to run for your life. So when Haneye says he will not respect the deal that will be struck possibly between Barack Obama and Benjamin Netanyahu and Mahmoud Abbas, he won't respect that. That means that if we do get a deal and then Hamas takes over, all bets are off, and it would perfectly lead up to the fulfillment of the prophecy of Jesus. Now, we know the prophecy of Jesus will in fact come to pass, just like it says, all the prophecies come to pass. Whether we understand them with absolute accuracy or not, when they do come to pass, it's so obvious what was really meant by the prophecy. But we can see things. We can see things before they happen. And we're actually looking through the telescope of Bible prophecy right now. We know that the end time has arrived. We're involved in it right now. It affects you. It affects me. We're living through the pages of the Bible right now. We are living out the prophecies of the Bible right now.
This has been an excerpt of Endtime Ministries' daily talk radio show, Politics and Religion. To view the show in its entirety, visit endtime.com, click the radio tab on the left-hand side, choose the show, and click Watch Video. If your show does not appear in the recent broadcast, click the More Broadcast tab at the bottom, and you can choose by date or show title. Be sure to catch our new television show, End of the Age, on Inspirational Network.